Please be seated. The scripture reading this morning comes from 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 through 7, and can be found on page 934 in your pew Bible. Since the passage is short, let us all read it together. Love is patient, love is kind, love is not envious or boastful or arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way and is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice in wrongdoing, but rejoices in the truth. It bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, and endures all things. May God bless to us this reading. This morning we have some reflections that are going to be shared, and I'm going to introduce and get to when they're going to be shared. Then afterwards I'm going to try to tie them together, although I haven't any idea what the people are going to share. On this Mother's Day, we celebrate mothers and the special love that flows through them. As we celebrate, let us reflect on how God's love can and is seen through mothers as hands of God. For it is this that we celebrate: God being with us through others' hands and hearts, and today, mothers. A few decades ago, at Christmas time, Dave Wood asked some of the fathers of our congregation to share how we had seen the face of God in our children. Page numbers are helpful. As one who was asked to share, I can attest it was a truly, truly powerful experience to reflect, to see something familiar in a new light, to share with my church family. Forgive me if somebody else here shared besides, but I know Dave Wetmore was also one of those who shared, and I do know that he found the experience spiritually very moving. It was like, remember this, I did this? It was like cleaning my spiritual lens. In planning this service and message, memories of that Christmas time sharing came forward and caused me to ponder. What better way to celebrate the love of God through mothers than having some mothers from our church family have the opportunity to speak to the question, how do you see the love of God as it was lived through your mother? How do you see the love of God as it was lived or is lived through your mother? As with Dave's request of decades ago, the potential of pondering that question could result in the seeing of new meanings, having new insights, or experiencing some very personal realizations. That is real. So too is the reluctance to speak publicly sometimes about these meanings and insights and private realizations. And perhaps that reluctance not to toot one's horn or speak like that is part of being a mother. But this morning, we are blessed to have Mary Benton, Barb Thompson-Snow, Donna Wood, and Eleanor Menzer share with us their church family as mothers, how they see the love of God as lived through their mother. And we're going to have them come up as individually at first. Mary, I would ask you to start us off, please. And when Mary's done, Barb will come, and then Donna, and then Eleanor. Before you start,
I would like to thank Peter, I think, for this opportunity to delve deeper into my perception of my mother and for a deeper revelation of my relationship with my mother. We know that the relationship between a child and their mother is powerful. It's significant. However, as I became thoughtful about today and my sharing, it became deeply evident to me that our individual relationship with God is omnipotent. The gift of this divine relationship is what is all-powerful. So, how did I see and feel the Holy Spirit, the love of God, in my mom? I'm going to share a few special memories that came to me as I prepared for participation in this worship. It was Christmas Eve in Ohio. My brothers and I were too young to go to the midnight service in town, about a block away. My dad was the pastor, so he was at the church. The church in the center of town had a high, towering steeple. And a few techie men in the early 1950s had rigged a system so that the music and the midnight service could be broadcast from the steeple. As an excited little girl that could not find sleep on Christmas Eve, I found my mother wrapped up in a blanket, sitting on the floor by the open back door. She was holding the telephone out the back door into the winter night. Ed Benty, our beloved tenor, was singing O Holy Night in the service. My mom was holding the phone out the back door so that his wife, also home with small children, could hear him sing. When my friend Anita fell on the playground and had to leave school to get stitches in her knee, she cried hard. You see, she had a brand new bike that was going to be left on the bike rack at school. And Anita was so worried about her new bike. Well, it was a small town, and my mom heard about the dilemma. She walked to the school in her 1950s mother's attire, no sleek biker shorts at all, and rode Anita's bike to the safety of our garage. Anita still sends me a Christmas card. Then there was the afternoon I came home from school after I had sobbed to her the night before, for I had had one of those days and was sure that absolutely no one in the 4th grade liked me. However, the following afternoon, I walked into my room to see a bag of pink bubble bath crystals propped by the pillow on my bed. Now, if Mom were alive, she probably would hardly remember that. But all these years later, I remember it clearly. Now, I distinctly remember a tissue-wrapped package on the bookcase by the front door one Saturday. Now, our paper boy came from a large family, lots of brothers and sisters. He seemingly did not have a hat and mittens. I remember seeing my mom discreetly slipping him the package on the bookcase. Of course, it contained warm mittens and a warm hat. She softly told him how much she appreciated what a good paper boy he was, seemingly causing no awkward moment. Lastly, when I was a senior in high school, I just could not seem to find time for breakfast. Now, my mom was way into healthy food choices and behaviors. Breakfast is a must. We went round and round about breakfast every morning. One cold winter morning in Conneaut, Ohio, with snowbanks from the snowplow, high, I was just about to climb onto the stopped school bus in front of our house, only to have my mother, in a long red robe, shove peanut butter toast on top of my books. Thank God I was a senior and possibly mature enough to join into the laughter that evolved on the bus as I turned to see the red robe mount the snowbank and go back through the front door. A few special memories I've shared, but they're so clear in my memory, ones that allowed me to feel loved and to witness thoughtfulness and nurturing. The bottom line for me is, because of my mother's recognition and the ability to feel and to listen to the love of God within her and in the world that surrounded her, she indeed supported the development of my spiritual path and my personal relationship with God. Yes, it's all reality. There is her vulnerability and my vulnerability, her life experience and my life experience. However, the truth is that her undeniable belief in a God that is unconditional love and ever-present for all allowed me some deep roots and a baseline of understanding goodness and pure-heartedness. It allowed me to know that even I am loved by this amazing God. We all have our spiritual path, and if we are fortunate enough to have had a present mother, it is a gift. I understand that God doesn't have any grandchildren, and I am grateful for having had a mom that helped me direct my attention to my spiritual path. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Mary. Barb, would you come share, please?
Wow. Okay. My mother was only 10 years old when her mother died, and I don't have a physical picture of Helen McAllister Porter. Mom usually only spoke of her when asked, and we didn't question Mom's careful, rare sharing of her memories. So, Mom's stew pot became my best connection to the grandmother I never met. It was the only vessel used to cook beef stew. It is cast iron, and there was a very specific recipe for taking proper care of that pot. No soapy water. Don't ruin the seasoning of the cast iron. Mom had learned how to tend it from Helen, and we learned from her. My mother had one sister and a very loving father. He stepped up at a time when men didn't have much opportunity to be fully involved with their families. Mom and my aunt each found a niche in the household chores, and Mom's talent ran to preparing meals and taking care of that stew pot. Mom's family was close, but very small. My mom and my dad met and were married when they were in college. He was an only child, and Mom wanted a big family. I was the first, and I have 3 brothers. We were close to my aunt's family and our 3 cousins. My aunt was diagnosed with an aggressive cancer when I was in junior high school, and we lived about 3 hours away. Mom spent the next 2 years back and forth on the New York State Thruway every week or two, spending time with my aunt and helping when she was receiving treatments. My dad's mother came to help at our house, and her life is another story of strength and resilience. Eventually, my aunt was so sick that Mom brought our younger 2 cousins to stay with us. Suddenly, we were a family of 5 children, going to school, eating meals together, sharing rooms. We set off on our summer camping vacation and made our way to Albany, New York during the end of my aunt's struggle. Mom was with her sister through those days, at the hospital, being with her. I don't know exactly what she said or did during that time, another of those private times in her life. I know she was there and that it was important. I don't know if it brought back memories of when their mother died. My mother loved family fiercely. Every moment together is precious. My brothers and their families, my cousins, my family, we are knit together by her deep, deep, abiding love. When I think of the word agape, I know Mom infused in us a big, big understanding of unconditional, all-encompassing love. It continues to hold us together and close, to seek one another out, to be there for the celebrations and the sorrows. I look at Mom's stew pot, her mother's stew pot, and I imagine her as a small child, watching her mother hold her own family close, cooking stew, teaching her child how to tend cast iron, building that fierce, iron-infused love for family that we cherish today.
No, I don't. Okay. Hi. I didn't know where to start with my mother. So I remembered I had a Lincoln Store donut box. Remember those beautiful boxes? And it had Mom's name on it. It said Hilda. And I put everything in there that I got after her death and, things over the years that I had saved from her. And I went through those. So. Yeah, it's bound not to work, but So, power up here. You see this picture right here? It says, Mrs. Chester Jump, League Banquet Speaker. And there's my mom right there, and she was in charge of that dinner. And it was just one of the many pictures I have of her, but I really am pretty sure that these are the glasses she was wearing. Okay? And believe it or not, they work for me. Anyway, so I just went through everything, and things that she wrote down, either to me or anybody else, or that she had other people write down, are things that I will share. And then after that, these will come off, and I'll kind of interpret what we got from what she said. Okay, because it's obvious from everything that's been shared that no mother stood up and said, "You better believe in God, by golly." So here we go. My mom passed her faith on to many folks. Why was her example so powerful? She couldn't make a pie crust to save her soul. We're not sure, but we're pretty sure her angel food cake might have killed our dog Sport. He was last seen heading across the field, over the hill, with the flat, rubbery cake in his mouth. Teaching, however, was her gift. She was a teacher to the bone and taught us how to be Christians. And here we go. Her words. As a child, I knew exactly what I wanted to do when I grew up. Dolls, teddy bears, and occasionally a friendly neighborhood child would be placed in the dining room chairs while I taught them the 3 R's. Intentional teaching, little words in a letter or a phone call showing us she was thinking of us. She wove little bits of love into a lifelong tapestry that centered around her faith in God. Looking through this stuff made it so crystal clear. Hilda Marion Lines, Cradle Roll, First Baptist Church, Hudson Falls, February 7th, 1913. Bringing pennies to put in the birthday bank. Mrs. Granger teaching me, so I got my Bible. She remembers every teacher, every person that was ever part of her education at First Baptist. She was grounded in that church. I was baptized on January 3rd, 1932. After my graduation from Oneonta Normal School, there was an abundance of teachers. There was not an abundance of teachers at First Baptist, so I found plenty of places where I was needed. Vacation Bible School. By the way, it lasted 4 weeks. In September, I taught a lively group of 7th and 8th graders. I had a part in every play. The happy years I enjoyed singing in the choir also began during this time. Her church was her life. And then came marriage and motherhood. When Labor Day came around the following year, I found myself teaching all 8 grades in the one-room stone schoolhouse. 13 years. And during this part of my life, I served as president of Women's League, Mothers of Young Children Circle, chauffeured my kids. After the children were all in school, plus the fact that I loved teaching and working with children, I was lured back into teaching. Teaching, once a teacher, always a teacher, and Mom was fabulous. She actually, this is her plan book, and I think it was the one that she used when she first went back to teach 5th grade. And then she saved a teacher's covenant, and her signature's there. She saved a little postcard that was in her Bible, and basically it says, I decided to teach children, not school. And then there was this invitation to her stone schoolhouse, and she used very authentic hands-on activities, methods, back in 1936. And so that when the kids learned their history, they wrote a play about it. They researched how to make clothes. They studied the politics of 1825. They made a flag, how it would have looked in 1825. And on this invitation, at the bottom, it's got Ellen Geer, Shirley Geer, my dad's youngest 2 sisters. So you might guess how Mom met my dad. So, how did Mom become known as a faith whisperer? She showed her faith with intentional actions, giving the Geer kids a chance to discover it as well. This was in there. It's a we rebuild our church. First Baptist burnt down. And if you look through the pictures, you'll see David Geer, Donna Geer, and Tommy Geer. I think John Peter was still maybe not born yet. She built my love for my brothers. For example, I've got these postcards. These are postcards that my brothers sent to me while I was at camp. Now, remember, probably if I was 11, they were 13, 9, and 7. But here's the postcards, and I'm going to read them to you. David's postcard to me. Bonjour. We've just gotten out of a cool, refreshing swim, 9 o'clock. Brr. Have you gotten your bathing suit and sneakers yet? And Tommy's. Donna, this is Tom. I've been having a good time. Please write back soon. We're getting another TV. P.S. Don't mind the writing. Scratches. And then John Peter's card. Hi, are you having fun? We're thinking of you when we are swimming. Are you missing our yelling? We went up to the head of the lake. We had fun. We're going to toast marshmallows. Now, I am sure that my mother made my brothers do this. But 60 years later, I still have the cards because it showed me that Mom and my brothers loved me. Intentional efforts. And now whenever we have somebody, family, kids, wherever, at camp, I send a postcard so that they know that. They're loved and valued. When any of us were away, Mom kept our family close through letters, too. She included comments that showed us how we were loved. I could have gotten to writing a little sooner, but John Peter wanted me to go out and look at the dollhouse since I hadn't seen it in 3 or 4 days. And what she really was saying, what I heard in my heart, John's building a dollhouse for Carol, and he is so excited. I have to stop and go see it. He loves you this much. So stop whatever you're doing and notice and as well. I want to tell you that Uncle John has been saying lately how much he misses Matthew and Carol Lynn. Of course, your father, Uncle David, and I say this quite often, but I guess it has finally gotten to Uncle John. My heart heard that John Peter loves my kids. He misses them. We do too, and remember this. Yesterday, Tommy said, gee, I hope Donna's having fun. Do you suppose she is, Mom? That's Tom for you. That is from a letter to me in 1961. Intentional inclusion of love in a letter. We will be awfully glad to see you. Is this the longest it's been? It seems like an awfully long time. I know we'll have to, but I don't know how we're going to wait until next Saturday. Love, Mom. She loved us and our kids. That's what I heard. Remember to tell your own kids this as much as you can. Danny didn't come in from the field to go to summer school. Suppose he is skipping? Hilda speak that meant, I notice everything. I'm not happy with your cousin. If you say you will do something, you best follow through. While I was a deaconess, I enjoyed the fellowship of the older members. They had so much to give. Always stop and say hello and really see them. Someday you will be old too. Here we are. I should have gotten up to sweep the floors, but here I sit beside my cup of tea. Thank you, dear God, for time to see the sun. Thank you for this brief time simply to be. Thank you for time to like just being me. Appreciate all. Give thanks, notice everything, and tell God thank you. The color was just gorgeous. There were lots of places where the leaves were off, but there were just as many places where they were beautiful. The world is how you decide to view it. I'm sending you an article from the paper. I'm not the only grandmother that buys Fruit Loops when my grandchildren come to visit. Remember to do extra. Make folks feel loved and appreciated. And don't mess with my grandchildren. Matthew, I may not be able to get down on the floor and play with the cars next time you come. Maybe you can help me with my walking. I'd like that. When I was picking up, I found one of your little cars under the table by the couch. I will take good care of it until you come next time. Carolyn, you forgot your toothbrush on the counter, so Mommy won't have to bring one when you come next time. I thought I'd put my writing papers back in your cupboard, but decided it was such a short time until you come again. I wouldn't bother. Hilda speak to her grandchildren. I love you, and I'll be waiting for you to return. This one's not very long. She heard that second stair squeak, and that tiny bit of throat clearing told me that she knew I was just getting home. She was awake until we were safely home. Decisions we make have consequences for those we love. Your father and I went to the early service Sunday. I did not watch so much on Wednesday as I went Bible study and then for cancer dressing work. For those who pray, prayer is life itself. God, are you there? I'm way down here, and you're way up there. Prayer is spiritual breathing. So why do we hold our breath? Faith is life. Prayer is life. Her church was her life. I am not a liar, and that Freihofer bread man did not believe me when I told him this lemon pie was spoiled. He will believe soon enough when he gets a whiff of this. But, Mom, I can't believe you're scraping it out of the garbage to take back to the store. I am not a liar. Never, ever lie. You see, Mom's life, her behavior, lined right up with what Christ expected of her. There was no hypocrisy in her faith. Mom showed us Christ, how he loved us. In closing, bluebirds have been a huge interest and comfort to me, putting up nesting boxes, watching their activity. Seeing one on the way to Mom's funeral reminded Carol and me of a long ago conversations about messages from heaven delivered by bluebirds. On that cold February morning, there was a bluebird, a whisper of love. I knew my Mom was okay in heaven. But Mom continues to love me, as looking through her saved stuff was this poem. If I can find it. There's a house on the side of a hill overlooking a valley of farms and barns, greens and tans, horses and corn and blue smoke. When I can go there, I sit in the swing on the porch and wave at the farmer plowing below, and hear the coarse croak of the pheasant, and soar with the hawk who's watching and searching, and smell the smoke of the wood stoves heating the homes, and hear the faint blasts of the train weaving through the peaceful landscape. Doesn't take long until the earth's pace becomes my pulse. And if I'm lucky, and if I want to, I see the bluebirds. Get everything back here.
You get the award for bringing the most stuff.
Well, I didn't know what I needed, once it gets started.
You got, wait.
What have I got? Oh, thank you.
Eleanor.
Amanda was her name. My mom. She was known Oma, as she was affectionately known by her family, had beautiful blue eyes and a heartwarming smile. Many years ago, some of you might have caught sight of her sitting in that third row from the back. Occasionally, she would join me and attend church services. Oma was endeared to Pastor David. Whenever his name was mentioned, she never hesitated to describe him as menschlich. Now, that's a German love word. I asked a few people about the translation. But the best I can do is David was compassionate, warm, understanding. That's our Pastor David. Oma loved her home in Rocky Dale and relished time in her garden. The old stone walls were a perfect backdrop for her flowers. She looked forward to springtime when the lawns and the fields were green and the yellow dandelions made their appearance. Homeowners groaned, but Oma thought God and nature produced a beautiful landscape. My family were fortunate to visit Rocky Dale holidays and vacations, during which times Oma could love and nurture us to her heart's content. In the summer, we could always look forward to a platter of strawberries or raspberries gracing the breakfast table. But Oma's love shone brightest during the winter evenings when we gathered in the cozy home. We had no TV, and we had no idea what cell phones were. But there was a record player console. We listened and occasionally sang along to show tunes. 76 trombones from the Music Man was a favorite with the boys. And there sat Oma, cradling a large white enamel pan filled with apples, usually stamens. If I close my eyes, I can still picture her. She was never happier than when she peeled, sliced, and passed apples to her family. It was a time and place of sharing what true love, simple contentment, and peace is all about. I read a statement once that could describe my mom. I don't remember the author, but I'll quote, "Seek out quiet people, for they have a lot to say," unquote. In her own quiet way, not earth-shaking, Oma shared with me God's true love. She was my mentor here on earth. How blessed and fortunate I was. I do believe that someday I will hear my mom say, "Come, Eleanor, hold my hand, and together we will walk through my garden again." Oops, I got my flower.
We have been blessed this morning. When we reflect on how special, and I dare say sacred, some of the people in our lives are, and on this day holding our mothers dear, I will submit that all of those we shared about this morning, or was shared about, would never characterize themselves as special. Never. Because they were simply being who they were. And God is love. God is love. And our mothers were living that love out through their lives. Barb, I believe it was, mentioned agape. And there's a number of kinds of love that are shared in the Bible. Philia is pretty high up there. Well, there's only 4, but in the Bible, philia is the intimate love of fellow humans, and is seen as the identifier as followers of Christ. We love our brother. But agape is higher. It's used by Christians to express the unconditional love of God for his children. It embraces a universal, unconditional, sacrificial, and pure love that transcends and persists regardless of circumstance. As Brother Dan shared with us once recently, God loves us the way we are, and at the same time, he loves us too much to have us stay the way we are. Moms would say the same thing. And he loved us each as he loved us all, and loved us all as he loved us each. unconditional, sacrificial, and pure. So I'm assuming it seems to you, it does to me, that much of what we experience in our mother's love could be seen as an earthly example of agape. Now, while I cannot personally attest to this, because I've never lived as a mother, it seems to me that living as a mother through agape, to live the life of love, also includes or requires a letting go. From carrying, through pregnancy, a being that is in her yet not of her, literally and figuratively nurturing that being with her heart. Literally and figuratively nurturing with the heart. Knowing deep inside that heart that the child will leave her, or she will leave the child at some point. God sent his only son to have him die. To leave, in one sense, Jesus left his mother before his crucifixion. Mark 3:31-35. Then Jesus' mother and brothers arrived. Standing outside, they sent someone in to call him. A crowd was sitting around him, and they told him, "Your mother and brothers are outside looking for you." "Who are my mother and my brothers?" he asked. Then he looked at those seated in a circle around him and said, "Here are my mother and my brothers. Whoever does God's will is my brother and sister and mother." Now, we all know the old axiom, blood is thicker than water. Well, this passage from Mark has often given me pause. Which blood am I? And I think you too, perhaps. At the same time, we know God's love through the spilling of the blood of his Son makes us all his family in our earthly lives and eternally. A family whose blood connection goes deeper than we can fathom. Last week, Randy shared a story of the mother and father who were faced with the agonizing task of saying goodbye to their tiny child. "We are the suns that shine down upon your face. We shine our love down on you." They were able to let their sweet child go because their aching hearts knew their son was becoming part of his larger family. I have previously shared with this congregation about the time my mother and I said goodbye for what we both knew was going to be the last time we were going to be together. Mom was at a stage when she could not outwardly express her feelings. So as I wept, she gently brushed away the tears of the 55-year-old face of her little boy. But I am now convinced, as Brother Dan described in one of his sermons, Mom had started her descent into greatness. What a wonderful phrase that was in Dan's sermon, our descent into greatness. And she was beginning already her greatest journey. She could sense being embraced by heaven and being in the presence and part of the holy. And in that, as she brushed my tears, she was anointing me with hers. In that timeless moment, because through freely and joyfully living out the love of God, giving full throat to all the kinds of cries Randy spoke of last week, all the kinds of cries, through her being, my mother was sharing with me the truth of the aching peace of love, agape. And through that aching